8 here on Kiwi. Time to talk politics. We do it with the leader of the Labour Party, Phil Goff. Morning to you, Phil.
G'day, Wammo.
How you doing?
Yeah, good, mate. Good. Just
Good
down in
news.
Christchurch.
Christchurch.
It's sunny morning down here, and we're doing our policy launch today for the Christchurch recovery. So just out and about last evening talking to people, and people have been through a pretty hard time down here, and they really do need a boost because with the insurance companies not insuring, just the economy or the recovery is really stalled, and people want to get on with their lives.
Who would have thought, just over a year ago, that you'd be needing a policy specifically for Christchurch?
Yeah. Well, it really came out of the blue. It was unexpected, and then I guess the normal course of events, you say terrible earthquake, September the 4th, but that's behind us now. Let's work what we can rebuild, what we can recover, and then to have 3 other major earthquakes after that, and one causing 181 fatalities. It was something that we really didn't want and we didn't expect. But now we've got to help people here. This is the second largest city in the country. We've got to help this city get back on track.
So in the package that you're announcing later on today, is there something for those people who have been zoned red? Yeah,
well, we're doing the launch from a person's property who's in the red zone, and I was talking to him last night, and he's in a situation where the insurance company says, well, we can rebuild this. The only trouble is it's red zone, and if he rebuilds, he probably won't get insurance there. And then if he wants to go out and buy and build a new home somewhere else, he's facing a situation where everybody's trying to do that at once. Just reading in the Christchurch Press this morning, 896 residents in the red zone in Kaiapoi alone, and they put 34 sections on the market. Well, they sold like hotcakes, but the prices are up. An average, I think, 40,000. A real estate agent told me in Kaiapoi the other day. So people are being squeezed both ways. They've lost their property. They've lost the value of their property. They don't get full compensation for it in many cases. Then they go out into the market. First of all, there's real trouble in getting insurance to build. And if they can build, what they're paying for the property and then what they'll be paying for skilled labour will push their prices up. The promise was made by government, nobody'd be worse off, but I'm sorry, it's simply not being delivered.
Talking about delivering things, of course, this time last week we were talking about the fiasco, the debacle that was the beginning of the World Cup with Transport and Party Central. Now, at that time on the show, Phil, taking you back, you said you wouldn't be pointing fingers, but then not long after we talked, fingers started being pointed at all over the place. Of course, you were pointing fingers at the government.
Well, I said the government, and as a matter of common sense, the government's got to share the responsibility, because I was listening to John Key and he said, it was the super city to blame, it was the Auckland Transport Company it was to blame, it was Veolia that was to blame, it was those nasty people on the carriages that pushed the emergency button. And I said, tie-ho here, mate. You're the guy that wanted it on Queen's Wharf, you're the guy that promoted Party Central, you're the government that's told everybody they needed to come downtown. You've got to share some responsibility, man up, accept that responsibility, and for God's sake, let's fix the problem, because, we're using this event to showcase New Zealand to the world, and if we have another stuff-up like this, what we'll be showcasing to the world is not what we want the world to think of us.
But then they went over the top and sidelined the Auckland City Council and rolled on and said that they were taking over everything, when in fact they kind of weren't, but they said that they were. So the response was perhaps a bit overbearing.
Well, it was a politicking response, wasn't it? Again, it was saying, we're taking over because you've dropped the ball. That's what Murray McCully said. He said to Len Brown, you've dropped the ball. Well, I'm sorry, Murray McCully, if your title is a minister in charge of the Rugby World Cup, I presume that means more than simply photo opportunities and taking the credit, standing on the field while they play the national anthem. It means that you've got to be held to account and you've got to share in the responsibility for this being a successful event.
But Phil,
and we all want it to be. You
know what it's like being up the top. You're kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Well, yeah, but look, when you look at it objectively, we've run Christmas in the Park for as long as I can remember. Coca-Cola sponsors it, and we know we get 250,000 people. And was the government really believing, central and local, that you could have a free concert, Neil Finn, great, huge draw card. You could have a spectacular fireworks display. You could have your waka. You could have all of the hype and excitement of the Rugby World Cup, and you were going to fit that on Queen's Wharf that holds 12,500 people. Hey, Michael Barnett, the chair of the Chamber of Commerce, said that he warned that, he thought there'd be at least 150,000 people, but nobody listened, nobody did anything, and this event's been years in the planning. So, and then at the end of it, just to make unilateral moves, not even giving the courtesy of a call to the mayor to say what you're doing, it just looked like politics on top of failure. And look, we've fought hard to get the Rugby World Cup here. Tana Umanga, Helen Clark went over. We got it. It's something to celebrate. It's a fantastic event for us, the biggest sporting event in our lifetime in New Zealand. We want it to be a success, but that means that everybody's got to pull together and they've got to think the thing through. And clearly they didn't, and then they wouldn't take responsibility for it.
But doesn't all this highlight, though, that Auckland has some pretty urgent needs, and we should be seen as a priority on the government's agenda?
Yeah, look, there's some underlying stuff about transport, and I think the mayor's right. It shows that you need that rail link because you've got to have a decent public transport system. But when they went into organising these events, they knew that wasn't in place. And the sensible thing to do, you would have thought, have the concert, and the fireworks, but why not hold that up at the Domain where we know that we can hold several 100,000 people and do it comfortably because we've had experience at it. Do the waka down on the wharf, so you have to do it down there. And then, spread the events around. The original concept, Wammo, you probably remember, Auckland City wanted to have fan zones around the place. So you might have had something up in Ponsonby, something up in Manukau, something at Waitakere. That would have been a great idea. And then the government came in over the top of that and said, no, Party Central, it's all happening at Queen's Wharf. We'll spend $9 million on building this, the cloud, and it's all happening down there. Well, hey, come on, if it's all going to happen down there, make sure that you've got your act together, and they hadn't.
Phil Goff, hey, thanks for your time. Cheers.
Okay, well, good to talk to you, mate, and we'll talk about our recovery package next week.
Sounds good. See ya.
Okay, mate. Cheers. Bye.
Leader of the Labour Party, Phil Goff, there with us, joining us.